Hi there, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. Today, we're going to be discussing a new theory / new motive to why someone like Jim Brenner may have snapped, which led to taking it out on Dylan, okay? And it's to do with the horse theory. The possibility that maybe Dylan accidentally let it loose. But how? Possibly to do with the gate situation, okay? Going to be doing a map analysis of that, mapping it out, talking the story through, but also in importance, which what we'll be looking at first is the gate itself, actual images of it, just to understand what it looks like visually. I'll also be tying that in with audio, video audio of Candice Cooley and what she has said about the horse, the track marks and Brenner, all into this video, okay? So there's a lot of depth and we're going to do each bit by bit, right? Also, before we continue any more, if you haven't already, I did upload another mini Dylan Rounds video earlier this morning. Make sure to check it out after watching this video. There will be a link down below in the pinned comment of the comment section, okay? It's quite an interesting finding, something that hasn't been talked about much, especially by majority of the YouTubers who cover the case, okay? So let's return back to today's video. Bear in mind, you can share your thoughts, opinions in the live chat as we go along and so on. So where should we start first? Well, I would say the gate. Let's take a look at the gate of the grain shed, right? First, I'll play the audio of Candice Cooley, play that through, and then we'll transition on to the images of the gate, okay? Let's move on over now.
The other thing that was wrong that we corrected it on Facebook is never said anything about a new gate. It had a new lock. Last year, Dylan had a key to it. This year, Dylan did not. He had changed the lock. As we've said, Dylan's not there full time, and Brenner didn't like the fact that Dylan would come and go as he pleases on that property, and so he changed the lock. The gate was not damaged. There was nothing. I mean, the gate's a little gate with little stays, little 4-foot wooden stays that barbed wire is wrapped around. I mean, you can undo it, and
it's like, isn't it like maybe some yarn or some? It's not even like maybe some rope. It's not even.
It's barbed wire. I mean,
you can unwrap it though, right? Like
you just unwrap it. Yeah, you just.
Yeah.
So it's like you think you're out in the middle of the desert hunting, and some guy has a gate up for his cows, and it's locked. You undo it, and you put it back up behind you, locked, and it doesn't. It's not like it's a big metal gate or anything.
Right, so you heard what Candice Cooley had to say about that. Do you agree with it? Leave your thoughts and reactions down below in the chat. The part where she was talking about Dylan not being there full time seems to make sense because of where Dylan would go, where it's be Justin Rounds, Candice Cooley's house, maybe the grandparents at some point, but also, most importantly, custom farming. If he's not doing farming at his actual farm, he's elsewhere doing custom work. So that's understandable. And what's been said recently in other interviews, that before Dylan went missing, he was away doing custom farming. So that ties in there. The bit about Dylan coming and going as he pleases ties into that as well. But it might also be the main motive, as said, to why Brenner changed the locks, because Brenner might see it as an inconvenience, more of an annoyance, that Dylan can just suddenly turn up unexpectedly, maybe to do work, maybe to grab hold of something, and then Brenner's disturbed. Maybe Brenner was trying to relax at a point in time, and with Dylan just magically turning up with no notice, it annoys him in some way. So by changing the lock, it asserts some form of authority, power, something that Brenner might have been lacking all this time. Little petty stuff like that possible. But also it might be reinforced with maybe Dylan was a little bit reckless in the past. Dylan not doing it on purpose, but just because he's sidetracked by other important stuff, other work. Just like with Dylan in his trailer where he would leave food about and not put it away. You remember that, what Candice said, and we even saw photos of the trailer with, I think, sausages or eggs on the side, not even put away. that could be the same case with the gate. Maybe in the past, Dylan sometimes would open it with the key but not lock it properly, and then it might swing open in the breeze. Maybe the horse got out in the past as a result of Dylan, maybe not. The way Candice Cooley worded it previously in an interview was, yes, it did happen in the past where Brenna's horse did go loose and was on the run and then ended up going to trailers or something nearby. And it was because someone didn't lock the gate. But that someone wasn't named. So don't know if Candice Cooley truly knows who that person was responsible, whether she's covering for Dylan or not. So you never know, that could have been an additional reason, just being cautious to prevent any more mishaps or disasters going on. But, maybe it did reoccur and that's what led to Dylan's disappearance. But before we jump to that, what Candice Cooley also said, the most important thing relevant to what's on screen now is the gate itself. Nothing high-end, nothing big and bulky. It was just like barbed wire wrapped around a post with a lock. Something being 4 foot as well in height. I think maybe the post, what you might see in the distance. As for this angle and image, if we just zoom on in here, in the distance you can see the grain shed. Now looking from it this way, this is the route Dylan would have took on the day he went missing if he was approaching the grain shed from his place of living, his farm, to the grain shed. Okay, so going up this way would be heading north to the grain shed, and this part I believe is the gate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it. As hopefully you can see yourself, on the right hand side there appears to be some kind of black fencing. I don't know if that's ironwork metal fencing or not, but then across the dirt road you can see little wooden post going across, so I assume that is the makeshift gate, if you want to call it that. I do have a clearer image which I can share with you in a second. So yeah, that's how it seems to appear. On the left hand side here there doesn't seem to be a fence. You've got a few posts there, and then on the left it seems very empty, unless it's more rope or wire over a certain period of distance and then it joins up with the next post. I'm not too sure. It doesn't seem to show on this side. On the right hand side you can see the fencing, right, the rails. But main motive behind all this, from what Candice Cooley said, and I'll repeat it again, is because Brenna has a horse, it escaped in the past, so he wants to prevent that from happening again, right? But, if it's more to do with the gate being left open, it doesn't matter if you got a fence or not. If the gate's open, the horse can get through. I mean, you could also question the height of the fence and the gate. Is it low enough for a horse to jump over? Yes, that's quite possible. You've seen it in the funny videos on YouTube where owners will have a fence, build it up, and then the dog just bounces off a tree and then jumps onto the other side. But I guess it depends what state the horse is in, because sometimes you can have a fence low enough and the barbed wire is enough to deter the animals from getting too close or climbing over, right? So what we'll do, we'll move on to the next image, which is closer up, I believe. Credit to the mob crew, Chris, on his channel, as he didn't provide, but he showed this image in his live stream, and I just basically used it as a reference point. And as you can see, this, I'm not sure which way this is being, like the angle it's from, because I'm not sure if that gate there is this gate here, right? I'm trying to look in the distance. There's some white stuff over that way. I don't know if that is to the grain shed or not. I mean, this is definitely the gate. Okay, this is the gate. I'm not sure if this is the gate as well, or if this is closer to the grain shed, which is like another checkpoint, let's call it. You can correct me, you can leave any points you want down below, right? But let's just focus on this sole image, right? On the left hand side you got some kind of mesh, makeshift fence. You can see all the wires as it goes up and down, about 4 foot probably, roughly speaking, like how Candice described. And then here, you got this wooden post, obviously, as you can see. And then past that wooden post, it looks empty, but there's a thin piece of barbed wire, and there's 2 lots of it, which is wrapped around the post, which will go across the road onto the other side and join up with the other post, most likely. And then there's a gap here, which allows it to be separated, which can be unhooked, the wire, as you see on the top. And then lower down, where it's circled in red, is the actual lock, which keeps the post stationary. And if you want to, open the gate, the makeshift one, if you want to call it that, you got to undo the lock. You need the key. Now, with a bit of force, even with a car, you could plow through it. You could break that gate easily. It's very flimsy, right? But there's not been any reports that the gate was broken down with any force, so that rules that out. As for Dylan's truck, if any of you remember the front of it, like the bumper, do you call it the bumper? Just below the bonnet. Yeah, that was kind of caved in, but previously it's been debunked that as Dylan ended up crashing into a post or something in the past, so it doesn't link to the disappearance of Dylan, whether it be taking him out or crashing into a gate. So we can rule that out. Though you never know, with misinformation down the line, who knows what will come out next. But more to do with the gate, as we were talking about. Dylan may have drove down on the day, the gate is locked. Dylan phones up Brenner, makes an attempt and says, hey, can you help? Can you give me the key? What's the problem? What's going on here? Hello? And obviously he doesn't answer, so Dylan probably more than likely has to walk all the way down to get Brenner's attention. And from that point on, I guess we can move on to the horse situation. With the horse situation, more to do with the horse tracks. What we've previously heard in one of the interviews, whether it be from the search and rescue, the LE report, and then Candice passing it on, or if it's just her own opinion, things have shifted from then till recent time. The original idea, the original report was Brenner walked his horse up to the train tracks and then they parted ways. The horse went one way, Brenner went the other. And at that point it was like, well, that's a little bit strange. We're trying to understand why. Why would that be the case? Is it because Brenner is giving up on the horse because he knows his time is nearly up, whether it be to do with the arrest of Dylan, his previous arrest in 2021 still pending, or even the gun charges. So instead of abandoning the horse, it ends up being neglected and dying. At that point, he thought, okay, it can go off on its own way and someone can take care of it. There's been other reports in between that where Kurt Wadsworth and Taylina got hold of it temporarily. Whether that was a direct exchange, a direct gift from Brenner to Kurt in that sense, or Kurt and Taylina found it stranded, it's questionable. But maybe one thing that will make a bit more sense, but arguably more confusion for some people, is the recent, I guess, interview of Candice, which was on Doug's channel, No Thanks. Different opinions have been shared since, and this video audio will explain it to you.
But the other one was the horse.
Right.
Brenner's horse being led towards the tracks, right? And the horse going one way and Brenner going the other way. Can you kind of...
Yeah, so we actually as a family seen that. And yeah, and he and search and rescue came across where he was out. I don't know exactly where they came across him, but they asked him about it too. And he said, yes, that was me walking my horse. This wasn't known, that it wasn't just us as a family seeing it. It was search and rescue. And I don't know what the conversation was that conspired between them. I wasn't standing there for it, but they felt that was an acceptable answer instead of coming to us and being like, hey, does this guy ever walk his horse? Because that's an absolute negative. No, Brenner did not walk that horse.
Brenner didn't even walk.
No.
Did you see him then?
Especially to be out in the mud. To be out in the mud walking a horse makes no sense whatsoever.
No
No sense.
So Candice Cooley's response is quite strong. She seems to be a firm believer that Brenner isn't the type of guy to walk his horse, to ride his horse, let alone even just like walk around. Maybe that can be explained by the health, the appearance of Brenner himself. You know, if he spends most of the time in his trailer or drinking, or maybe using his vehicle to visit Don Haley's Montello, you know, not exactly active lifestyle, right? But you got to take in consideration his age, his behaviour, and all of that. So in a way, it's understandable to why Candice Cooley wouldn't think Brenner would ride a horse. But then again, you got to question, how does Candice Cooley truly know? Does she live on that land? Is she present there to see Brenner at all times? No. So some people could throw criticisms back at her and say that it's just your opinion. And whilst it's okay for you, Candice Cooley, to criticise search and rescue in a way, or the LE, about them listening to what Brenner has to say before listening to what the family has to say, you got to take in mind, really, the only person that would ultimately know and truly know would be Dylan Rounds, as he did know Brenner and was present at the time in the vicinity of Brenner and what he would get up to. If Brenner was to ride his horse or just to take it on a little walk around the perimeter, wherever, whatever, and Dylan was there at times, he would have seen it. Candice Cooley, as said, wasn't on the land at the time, if not most of the time, right? Because she's elsewhere doing other things, right? Makes sense. So it makes sense to why search and rescue and the police would go to Brenner first to ask him directly, right? I know you could say there's a level of biasness, but who else can you really ask, right? I mean, arguably, they could have asked Don Haley instead, because he's living on the land and he knows Brenner. But then again, he might lie as well. Though with the lie detector test, as we've heard polygraph on previously, he passed that. So they should have asked him about the horse instead of asking Brenner. And Brenner's response was, from the way it was worded in that interview, well, I'll just show you the clip of. Brenner said, yeah, I would walk my horse around and stuff, and that's what those track marks were up that way near the railway tracks. Now, is it a surprise to you that Brenner would come out with that? Or is he saying that for a certain reason? Is it to excuse him? Because if it is true that he doesn't walk the horse and Candice Cooley is telling the truth on this occurrence, then why is Brenner lying? Why do you need to lie about taking a horse out for walking around? Is it because Brenner feels a little embarrassed because it's not a manly thing to do? I don't know, you see cowboys, male cowboys riding horses and walking them around, and you got the herding of cattle in different countries like Australia and stuff. So I don't think it would be that. Is it because it ruins Brenner's image? It makes him look a little bit soft if he's bonding with a horse? Maybe. I mean, it's just trying to understand, like, is it a cover-up for something? Is it because the horse was doing something at that time instead of it being walked? Is it used as some kind of alibi in between to excuse track marks? Or is it partially true, but he's not fully admitting to the full truth, just like with the boots? Like, Brenner saying, oh yeah, I did pick up the boots, I did move them, and I placed them there near the dirt mound. So he's admitting to that, which ties in with the DNA on the boots, but he's not saying, oh yeah, I did that because before that I killed Dylan. He's not confessed to that. Obviously, viewers and general public can assume that that's what Brenner has done, but he's not literally admitted it, has he? So it's the same with the horse and the tracks. Maybe that horse may have been used to dispose of Dylan in some way. Candice Cooley did acknowledge that in a previous interview, so you never know. But, the track marks might have been caused at sending the horse that way to dispose of something, even dispose of the mobile phone, let's just say. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he just did it as part of a walk, a journey to the place. But instead of admitting to, oh yeah, the horse and I was responsible for this because of doing something else, which was disposing of Dylan, he doesn't include that, just like with the boots. That's what I'm trying to get to the point of. But Candice Cooley doesn't seem to agree with that. But it's still left open now that we assume that the track marks are there because track marks were present, and that's why the questioning came out saying, whose horse is it? Who's responsible? And Brenner supposedly owned up. Candice Cooley denies that. So what are we left with now? Track marks of horses, but there's no definitive answer of why they are specifically there with everything we've concluded just then. Well, that's what I mean. Now it opens up to interpretation. Now it opens up to theories emerging, trying to grasp the idea and make sense of things. And that's where it ties in with my horse situation of Dylan, whether it be the gate or another gate further on, whichever way, who knows, was left open or just not locked when going in or exiting out. And then the gate opened, blew open in the wind or fell over, depending on how flimsy it is. And then at some point the horse got out, fleed, and then that's what led to Brenner's meltdown, we would call it. So let's just go on Google Earth briefly, just to map it out and tell the story more visually, okay? Right, the visual interpretation of how that unfolded. I can describe that to you now. We will speed up on certain parts so it's not too repetitive, understandably. So obviously on the day, the 28th, Dylan awakens in the morning, gets in his grain truck from the looks of it, and basically drives all the way down here, reaching to the point of sun tunnels, as you see, okay? Taking a right here onto the grain shed, right? The gate being present here, the first phone ping being present here, 6:51 a.m. as described beforehand. This gate, from what we've seen on ground level, is flimsy. When we look at it from this angle though, it does appear darker, which is interesting. It's like a black line and it's quite thick. If it was barbed wire, you wouldn't be able to see barbed wire from this distance from a satellite image. So I don't know if things have changed with time. Bear in mind, this is 2019 imagery, so maybe they scaled back on the gate. I want to know your thoughts because it does look visually different on here as opposed to the real-time images of 2022, okay? I want to know your thoughts on that. But nevertheless, gate supposedly locked. Dylan doesn't have a key anymore because the locks have changed. Dylan makes an attempt to call Brenner, not as successful. So most likely Dylan had to walk all the way down. And that is possible. I mean, if it's barbed wire though, and it's all barbed wire, how would Dylan climb over it without hurting himself? Do you know what? I'm going to make a very quick on-the-spot idea, right? Let's just say that the perimeter is all barbed wire fencing. Let's just say that from the way it's been described. And Dylan had to climb over it because he can't get the vehicle through because it would be damaged. But he tried climbing over it to get down to Brenner's and say, hey, can you unlock it? Because the phone isn't being answered, the call, right? And in the process of Dylan climbing over the fence, what happens if he hurt himself? Whether it be his hand, his arm, his leg catched the barbed wire, which caused a little cut. And with that little cut led to blood dripping. And that blood droplet landed on his boot, which caused that blood stain, which was Dylan's blood, from what the lab reports have said. Do you think that might have happened? Do you think that's a possibility? I'll do a poll now about Dylan possibly climbing over the gate, which is barbed wire, and hurting himself in the process. Not fatally, but enough to cause maybe a blood trickle, which landed on his boot. Okay? Just thought of that on the spot. So, Dylan comes all the way down here. He might even be running, who knows? He might be a bit frantic, you know? Determined, obviously, with his farming focus, got a deadline, got a schedule, and if there are roadblocks preventing you from doing something, it's going to piss you off, partially. I don't know if Dylan had a temperament, if he ever sweared, if he ever got aggressive, ever got in a fight with anyone. I don't know that background information. And I know people, and I know the shack lady have said, so what? Does it matter about a person's past, etc., etc.? Well, it does, because if a person's past repeats itself, then it could lead to a certain outcome, right? If Dylan has got in the odd argument in the past or fight, then maybe it reoccurred this time because of the gate, because of the seed truck needing to be put in the grain shed and it being prevented or delayed, which is leading to not anxiety, because that's an overused word by people in this world nowadays with the whole mental health bandwagon, but more just to do with nerves, more to do with just like, damn, I've got to do this. I'm proactive. I can't be stopped. I've got to do this. I cannot let the seeds get wet. It will ruin everything. It will go wrong. You know, hyperactive, would you call it that? Possibly. I don't know if you'd say ADHD. Probably not. You know, Dylan's farming and he's focused with that, so I don't think you could say he's got that. But you get the idea. Dylan, a certain mood, a certain mindset might not click with Brenna at the time. Once Dylan gets down here, let's just say, and gets to Brenna's camper, whether he knocks on the door hard or not, it might startle Brenna, because Brenna, as it's been described by Candice, Dylan is working elsewhere, custom farming. Brenna said he's not seen Dylan for over a month, right? And, you know, you try and tie it together in some way. Dylan shows up as he pleases, key word. That annoys Brenna. It might startle him because Brenna wasn't expecting Dylan to come. The phone may be turned off, and that's why Brenna didn't pick up the call, maybe. So then Brenna's like, whoa, what's going on here? Gets out the trailer. Could something have bad happened there on the spot? I wouldn't say so, because Dylan was able to park the grain truck in the grain shed, and I don't think Brenna would have been responsible for doing that, because Brenna wouldn't have known about Dylan's plans on the day unless Dylan explained it to Brenna before being taken out. But still, it would make you think, well, why would Brenna need to park the grain truck in the grain shed? There's one way of looking at it, but we'll get into that much later, right? Let's just be under the impression that Dylan is still alive at this point with the whole phone pings and stuff. So, Brenna gives Dylan the key, let's say, and says, hey, you got to give it back once you're done. Dylan rushes all the way back up here to the gate, unlocks the gate, and then drives through. And then either at this point or when he's leaving to go back to his farm, let's do it with the second idea, just so it ties in line with the phone ping for now, okay? You can interpret it differently if you want to, but I'm just going to do it off this, based off the phone pings, right? So, first phone ping here, as I said earlier. Second phone ping down here, and it was like a double one, right? So once this gate is unlocked, Dylan drives through. The gate is shut and possibly re-locked. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't shut. Take that in mind. Dylan is in a rush. He's been known to leave things and abandon stuff before, such as food, because he's focused on his job. And his job, his primary goal, is grain truck, grain shed, before the rain, protect the seeds, protect the value, right? That's important. So he does do that. And as said, parks it in there successfully. Done. Job done. What does Dylan do then? Does he walk all the way back? That's what you got to try and understand. I know we've looked at other theories about Dylan being picked up, sent back by Brenna in the vehicle. That's one way of looking at it, but I'm not going to tie it in with this case. I'm going to tie it in with the original raw concept, with like what Candice worded, that Dylan has been known when he's finished at the grain shed to walk all the way back to his farm, which is over that way east. And it's about 5 miles, right? That's the distance, 5 miles from the grain shed to his farm. He walks all the way back, and this is the important thing. You remember what I said about the gate being left open, or at least unlocked, down here? Well, if Dylan went through it, not crashing through, but opened it and then drove through it, and did not get back out and lock it because he was preoccupied, and once he finished down here, right, let's just say if he was to drive down that way again, if he had a vehicle, he might lock the gate. But he didn't go back down that way if he supposedly walked it back, because he's been known to cut across over that way. So if he goes over this way, he's not going in the direction of the gate. So if the gate's been left open, it's going to remain open. And Dylan carries on going this way, completely oblivious to it because he's forgotten. He's focused on other stuff. He has other priorities, right? And if this has happened before in the past, that could be another reason to why Brenner changed the locks on things, because he was sick of it being left open. It can get annoying. It becomes a chore. First, it's having to remind them, you got to lock the gate, make sure you lock it on the way out or on the way you come in. And if people fail to do that, then it's like, fine, I'll take matters into my own hand and change the locks. But obviously on this occasion, regardless of the locks being changed, Dylan still may have failed to close the gate. So Dylan gets on with his normal thing, right? Gets all the way back over here to his place of living. Where is it now? Zoom out a bit, apologies for that. It's because when you're facing north, there we go. Back to his place of living, down here, right? Okay, it's not fully loaded, but you get the idea. And he's cut across the land because he's done it before. It's nothing new. And whilst Dylan is down here, with this being the next phone ping area, I believe the third phone ping, why does the fourth phone ping occur back at Jim's trailer? There is a possibility that whilst Dylan is cozying up in his trailer or getting more food, whilst that gate is still left open down here, right? This gate here, if that's open and Brenner's horse is roaming the perimeter around here, because I don't think Brenner's horse would have been in the grain shed at the time Dylan parked the vehicle. And if that was the case, I can imagine the horse may have been spooked by the loud noise of machinery, the loud noise of a vehicle, right? Horses can get spooked by that. That's why when, like in the UK, when drivers, most of them that drive past horse riders, they drive slow, because if they speed past, the horse spazzes out, throws the person off the horse, and then it all goes to shit, and then the horse runs off. So if the horse was nearby, it might have got spooked. It might have ran away and galloped. Which direction? Who knows, really? It could have gone anyway. But with Brenner saying it's occurred in the past, the horse was able to escape because someone forgot to lock the gate. If we're assuming that's a reference point to the gate down here, right, and it was left open, maybe the horse, because it's done it before, came running all the way down the road, exited through this gate, and then ran off into the distance. What we must understand, the horse went to the railway tracks. So it would have had to have gone a certain route, right? And the railway tracks are on the other side of the wash. Now with the horse, if we're referring back to the first time it all happened, probably not, because they said about trailers, which probably would have been in a different direction, right? But I'm sure with the back roads and different routes back there, what we looked at, the horse could eventually get to this point here, right? I don't know if it would jump down into the wash or go and follow the path up that way to the waterhole, but at some point, at some spot, we don't know the coordinates exactly, but there are horse marks, track marks of a horse. I don't know if there were footprints along with the horse. If that was the case, then that would reinforce Brenner's original, do you call it a motive? Brenner's original story, right? If there's no human track marks, like footprints, then, and it's just horses, most likely the horse escaped. And you can see the railway track is here, and it runs all the way down. So at a certain point, that's where the tracks were found. And then what happened then? maybe the horse was retrieved back, and then later on that led to Brenner handing it over to Kurt for whatever reason. Maybe Brenner, another motive, just had enough of this whole ordeal, thinking, God, I'm sick of this, that keeps happening. You know what, you can take the horse, I'm done with it. It's so annoying, it causes me more trouble than it's worth. That could be another reason. But in the process, whether it be right away finding out about the horse or not, Brenner could have been very, very annoyed, right? Because Candice Cooley said Brenner got very angry last time it happened. So, if the horse was set loose again, Brenner most likely would have got angry once again, but this time it might have been more aggressiveness, which led to him snapping, right? But how does that concern Dylan? Well, the way I see it is, once Brenner found out and he's in a fit of rage, he might have phoned Dylan. Now, I can't be I can't be completely 100% certain, because I know people said, like the family, the phone logs with Dylan's phone, nothing out of the ordinary. But I don't know if there was anything on the call logs which said anything about Brenner calling Dylan back. You know what I'm saying? There's two different alternative ways we can look at it right now. One, under the circumstance that there was a call log made by Brenner to Dylan saying, you need to come back to the grain shed, you need to come back here because I need to have a word with you. We've got a problem. That could be the case. If there was no calls made from Brenner to Dylan, then it's probably more likely that Brenner paid Dylan a call and visited round to his farm and then did something that way. Do you see the two different alternatives? So we'll play through the first story first of all. So Brenner's angry. He's thinking, damn, right. One, I need help trying to locate the horse. But two, I want to take it out on Dylan. I need to have a word with him because I'm sick of the gate being left open. I told him to keep it locked. So I'm going to make a call, and then you cross over that distance, right? Dylan getting up to his own thing, minding his own business, and then out of nowhere receives a call from Brenner. Dylan answers the call, and Brenner's like, you need to get your ass back here right now. I'm done. I'm sick and tired of this. You need to come right now. How would Dylan get there? Well, Dylan does have his truck, his Ford F-150. So Dylan got into that truck and basically drove all the way back. Right, we'll just drag it along quickly. All the way back. There we go. Turning right here. Going through the gate, which is most likely, unlocked, opened already. And then getting to this point, which would be the fourth official phone ping. So that would explain to why Dylan is back at Jim's trailer. He was called back. He was ordered to come back because Brenner wanted to have a word with Dylan. And that is maybe where the confrontation took place. Brenner's pissed off and annoyed. He's in a rage because he's done it before. And Dylan's like, oh, well, I was in a rush and I needed to get the grain truck in the grain shed. And then he's like, oh, screw that, save that for later. I've had enough of all your excuses. You come, you go, you speak down to me. You're 19 years old. You're going to take over this land. Like, what else do you want? You're causing me trouble. You're causing disturbance. What else have I got? I'm sick and tired of you, man. And at that point, maybe Brenner does something to Dylan. Now, you refer back to those boots, what I suggested earlier on. Maybe Dylan already sustained an injury earlier climbing over the fence, if that was the case, the barbed wire gate, which led to the blood droplet on his boot, right? So it doesn't mean to say that Brenner caused that blood from Dylan. He might have been something else. He might have been strangled. He might have been knocked out but not punched in the nose to cause blood to drip, right? And it's been known that Brenner has strangled people in the past. I don't know if it was with the 70-year-old or someone else, but it's happened. So Brenner may have done that again with Dylan. You never know, there's different ways of taking people out, with objects or just with your hands. So that could be how it went. Now, in terms of the whole disposal thing, I've done several videos on that already, right? So we don't need to go back over that again because I only just did that recently. But this is a different concept, a different motive, a different reason to why Brenner would snap, because he has snapped before. Not violently, but just like, I guess, verbal aggression and being pissed off. And if the person is in the presence of Brenner when it happens, then it could lead to someone getting hurt. Now, with the person in the past who's unknown of, because the name wasn't mentioned, but Candice Cooley said a farmer or someone left the gate open. Maybe that person never returned back, but if they did, maybe Brenner would have killed another person. So Dylan may have been the second victim, the second murder victim, right? There's certain ways of looking at it. If Dylan never returned back and he just went on to family, he went to Justin's, Candice, Brenner would have been annoyed, but Brenner wouldn't have been able to get a hold of Dylan, right? So, different ways. Now, let's just rewind and go over the second condition. The condition that there was no phone calls made from Brenner to Dylan. That's what the call logs suggest. Let's just say it like that, because I know you can't check the data of Brenner's phone because it only lasts for 7 days and I didn't check within the period, so it became obsolete, it just deleted. But still, when checking Dylan's phone, if there was a missed call or if there was just simply a message, whatever it may be, it would have been recorded at least on Dylan's phone, but they said nothing was found. So with that being the case, it would make me believe that Brenner paid Dylan a visit. Brenner got in his own vehicle, let's just say, drove all the way down here. He might have been driving aggressively, he might have even taken shortcuts if he's pissed off. Come all the way down here, up to where Dylan lives, right? Just zoom out a bit just so it's a bit more efficient. There we go. And then once Brenner parked up by the side or literally on the land, he got out and then started banging on Dylan's trailer door saying, "Hey, get out here right now. I've got to have a word with you." And then basically the same, exchange of words and conversation takes place as I described before. And then on the spot, maybe that's when Brenner lashes out at Dylan. And then the rest of the events unfold after that. I did cover this angle, this location before, of how things could have turned out from here on to the 4th phone ping, okay? So it all still ties in line with one another. If you want to follow on from this location back to Jim's trailer, the 4th phone ping, and then the 5th and final phone ping at the pond, you can check that link, that video out of my previous video I did, the one where it was going along the idea of Brenner giving Dylan a lift back. It all ties in different ways, right? Certain stories, but kind of similar situations of locations, right? So it's fine. It will make sense when you watch the videos. But yeah, that is one way of looking at it, all because of the horse being lost temporarily. Okay, so hopefully that made sense to you. I think the key thing to understand is, sure, whether the horse was lost or not, at that time, it was found eventually, it was retrieved in some way. Let's just word it like that, because Kurt and Taylina eventually got a hold of it. So whether they found it stranded or Brenner found it first and then handed it over to Kurt, in the short term, it may have been missing. In the long term, it was finally passed on and then later passed on to Idaho Falls, and then it supposedly died. But what you must remember, in that short space of time when the horse may have been lost, Brenner may have snapped. And when people snap, it can be a burst of rage, an outburst, but it doesn't last too long, right? It's short term, it's on the spot. And that could have occurred when taking it out on Dylan. And then after a certain amount of time, it wore off, he realised what he's done, and then he started acting on it, disposing of things, etc., right? Hopefully that makes sense to you. The outcome of the horse in the end was, aside from the Idaho Falls incident, supposedly, the horse was okay in the end. So you could say, well, there's no need for Brenner to, you know, lose it or get angry, but it's happened in the past, as what was said several times now. And, you know, I'm sure Brenner would have got angry over other, even more petty things in the past, short-term stuff. You know, the bigger picture, it ends okay. But at the beginning, it's like end of the world. Oh, that's it. I'm done for. I'm angry and pissed off, blah, 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 and it all goes wrong. You know, what's a very random example? It's not quite accurate, but let's say I'm playing a video game. In the short term, it feels like I've lost. We don't stand a chance. You know, I'm playing this team-based game. I'm playing Battlefield 1. Look at the score. What is the point of playing? I'm sick of this. I'm sick of losing. I'm sick of this shit team. And I end up not playing, or I end up quitting the match or something like that. And then I find out on the match report later on, they ended up winning, my team. So in the end, it was okay. But because of that short burst of frustration or short burst of being impatient, it impacted how I reacted at that point. So the same with Brenner, losing the horse, let's just say, under those circumstances, which led to him acting out. And then eventually when he got the horse back, it's like, what have you got to complain about? You got it back. But it's that short time window which matters the most, right? So I think we can conclude it there just for now. We can share your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. I've not heard anyone else talk about the horse theory, the motive of it for causing Brenner to get angry, right? Couple of people here and there did say it's a possible theory when I loosely and briefly touched upon it in a past video of mine. So I thought I'd bring it to light and more attention and detail in this video, alongside with including the gate, the fence, and even what Candice Cooley has said in the interviews. So trying to put it all together so it merges with one another and follows from one thing to another. So if you have any additional points, if you want to add on, if you want to question, debunk, strengthen, whatever it may be, make sure to leave a comment down below. I'll try to respond to some. I might not be able to respond to everyone because I may not have an answer, or and, you know, with higher volumes of people, higher volumes of comments, not everyone may be responded to. That's just a natural thing. That's what can happen, right? So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. For now, good night and goodbye. It's a good thing I'm a paramedic as well. I think I need to try and revive this horse, you know. Times like this, it's critical, you know. Maybe seconds, maybe minutes away from death. So I have to apply pressure upon the chest area or the side of it. Okay, come on. Come on. You can make it. I'm doing it as hard as possible, following rhythmic pattern to get that heart starting once again. Come on, you can do it. Wake up now. Come on. Oh, do I feel some progress? Okay. If you want CPR, I'll give it to you later. For now, this is more important. Okay. Do I hear anything? Any breathing? No. I'm not going to use my lips to give the horse the kiss of life. No. No, I don't do that. Not at all. Come on. There we go. 2, 3. There we go. It's okay now, isn't it? Yeah, there you go.